One. Hello everybody, this is Rene Gonzalez. Awoi fabemi oni chango obanya omodu ogbeate obeirete. I'm here doing a video in response to what seems to be a Babalao. I'm not sure if he is, a Boru Aboye, at least my respects as a Babalao, to a man, I believe his name Awolaye Muhammad or Molaye Muhammad. I can't remember the name, but he's on TikTok. And he did a video where he essentially made an essentialist, what's called an essentialist racialist argument. For those that don't understand, essentialism is the idea that something has a particular essence that can't be replicated in other areas. And in this case, the argument was that people who are light-skinned or Euro-descendant, or practically anybody that's not African descendant, doesn't have the capacity to practice Ifa, or any African traditional religion, voodoo, candomblé, any of the derivative traditions that come from the distribution of the slave trade in the Americas. I'm assuming that based on the essentialist racialist argument, some would even call it essentialist racist argument, that means that Asians are excluded, that means that Arabs are excluded, that means that Euro-descendant, anybody from the European countries, Spain, France, Sweden, doesn't matter, are excluded. Canadians are included, Mexicans are excluded, South Americans are excluded, any of the people who have more DNA of indigenous groups of Latin America are excluded. Pretty much everybody is excluded except Africans. Let's put aside, I probably could end this video with this. Let's put aside the fact that on a scientific basis, every human being has African DNA. All human beings stem from the original man that comes from Africa. That ends the argument. If everybody is a descendant of the original Africans that later spread to Europe, spread to the Arab world, spread to Asia, through the Bering Strait to North America, to South America, etc., as science has proven, if this is so, then we all have the right to practice all these traditions because we all stem ultimately back to that original man. Case closed. That's the first argument, science-wise, to discount this very ridiculous argument. The word is disconcerting. This disconcerting argument coming from a person who should be an elder of age. I don't think he's an elder in knowledge. I am not sure if he's an elder in initiation. But if he's an elder of initiation, he wasted his time because he doesn't know what he's talking about. We're going to get to that. But the argument is that basically these traditions are reserved for African people. There was another person in the comments that mentioned that he was right, that perhaps Euro-descendant people could be initiated into these traditions and work, but it wouldn't really work for them because they didn't have the energy. They didn't have the transmission of the ancestors. We're going to get to that. There's a big misconception here. To start off, that's the first argument. Second, he's late. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I hate to be the Caucasian. There was a guy calling about the melanated. I love that term. Such a racist, stupid term. There's no other terminology for that. Just an idiotic, stupid term. As idiotic as a white person calling a black person a nigger, or a white person calling an Asian a chink, or a white person calling a Latino a spig. It's the reverse stupidity. It's proof that human beings of all races can be stupid and can be so insecure that when they think that, oh, the white man has taken everything from me except my religious practice, I'm not going to let the Caucasoids or the Caucasians or the vulture cultures, as one woman, a ridiculous Afro-Puerto Rican woman once told me, a woman that wasn't even in the ATR traditions, an atheist woman on top of that, told me I couldn't practice this faith and told a fellow Babalao, a fellow initiate in this faith, a fellow Omo Odu, who by virtue of our status alone, and we don't even claim it, but by virtue of our status should have been respected in this tradition. You know, it's incredible that the people who receive respect in this religion are the ones that bark the loudest and scream the loudest and say the most stupid, idiotic things. But the people who are calm, reasoned, and intellectual about this and explain the things, we are disrespected. And our status as priests are not respected. So if we're going to be talking about ATRs, by virtue of the rules of these religions, the person that was criticized by this Afro-Puerto Rican woman, who I defended and then got the fire in defense of him, both of us need to have highest respect from anybody in any room of Ifa Orisha because we are the highest ranking priest there. We are higher than all the other Babalao priests. We are definitely higher in rank of all the Olorishas. And even though we have that rank, at least in my case, and I'm sure he's the same way, we respect age and experience, especially when that age and experience is backed up by respect for their own person. When we're in the presence of a woman or a man who is 60, 70, or 80 years old, and they've had initiation for 30, 40 years, and they're very knowledgeable, we respect age and knowledge. We don't throw ourselves for religious reasons. The throw ourselves is to do a what's called a moforibale or foribale, to throw our head on the ground, to touch our orito the ground in respect to the elder, because our ranking, spiritually wise, is higher than that person. But virtually we do that. We do a foribale by our actions and our words. The persons that are arguing this stupidity are insecure and have no knowledge of how African traditions work. And I'm going to go further. It's not an African tradition. This is a human tradition. It has nothing to do with me cultural vulturing anything. It has to do with this knowledge proven already by anthropology that it's not from Africa. Let's work specifically with Ifa, which is the tradition I work with, Ifa Orisha. The Afro-Cuban variant is the one I practice, but ultimately it's the same knowledge. It's already been proven. We've already talked about this in a lot of my TikTok videos. There's over 26 anthropologists. I think it was 27. I can't remember the last count. Over 26 anthropologists of all races, even Nigerian anthropologists, who have agreed that the divination system, that the Mejis, that you can highlight in Ekwele. If you're looking right here, I don't know, but you probably can see Iyogbe. If I was to flip them over here, Oyekun Meji. If I was flipping over here, Iwori Meji, Odi Meji, and so forth. These signs, which are a total of 16, are called the 16 mothers or the 16 king signs. Other traditions practice it. Nigeria is not the source of this. I've already done a Spanish-based, and I think I did a few English-based, but Spanish-based set of videos explaining how these signs are seen in at least 10 different ethnic groups across 5 or 6 countries in Africa. They're available in Mali, they're available in the Sudan, they're available in Nigeria, they're available in Benin, they're available in Togo, they're available in Ghana. At least those I know for sure off the top of my head. And I've done videos examining every single ethnic group with proof, with anthropological proof and photographs and videos of all of these traditions, at the very least having the 16 traditional signs. And the Malagasy people of Madagascar, I forgot about them, because the argument is that this is knowledge from Africa, and I've always put it to the Isheshe practitioners, then how the hell did the people of Madagascar, 300 miles away from the coastline of East Africa, got the same 16 Mejis and the 16 signs? And don't tell me that the Nigerians in primitive times crossed over 2,000 miles. That's probably, just imagine that, over 2,000 miles. I don't remember the amount of mileage, but I did the research of it. Over 2,000 or 3,000 miles just to get to the East Coast without dying, a caravan, without food, without getting eaten by wild animals, without getting cannibalized by cannibal ethnic groups. There are other tribes that were cannibals, which did exist in Africa, and I think a few still exist. Without getting destroyed in the traverse, in the trip to the East Coast, and then 300 miles overseas to get to the other side, to an island of Madagascar, so they could educate the Malagasy people. Give me a break. The spread of geomancy in the world, it's already been investigated by Philip Dubois and Stephen Skinner and other anthropologists. And all of their maps, I showed them in the video, showcased that the likely source of geomancy starts in Asia, comes to the Arab world through Persia, etc., to the to the west of Asia, gets into the Middle East, and Middle Eastern Muslim mercaderes, merchants, bring this information to the west of Africa. And there is no proof that the Nigerians had it first. It could have been that they got it at the same time that the people of Dahomey got it, at the same time that other groups got it. The Sudan and Mali, who are higher on the African continent, have the knowledge. So it stands to reason that they got it first. And they're still very Muslim nations. And this is Muslim information. At least the root of what Nigerian Ifa is. We don't know the root of that particular set of the 16 signs. Maybe it was Asia. But the root of Nigerian, and the root of Igbo, and the root of Edo, and the root of Igala, and the root of Ewe, and the root of Fong, and the root of Miyanka people, and the root of the Sagawa people of Sudan, and the root of the Madagascar people's divination, that all stem from the same exact 16 mother signs. That is Muslim tradition of realm. Case closed. There's 27 anthropologists who have already studied this. And I've already released the list of books and the anthropologists for people to study this. Go do the research. I am tired of the Afrocentric arrogance. It's as stupid as the European-centric arrogance that Europeans had a bigger brain and, Africans had a smaller brain. That period in U.S. history where they were measuring the skulls of Africans and the skull of Europeans to try to suggest that, Europeans were smarter. It was stupid. And we're in 2026, and Afrocentric people, mostly from over here in the USA, who don't live in even Africa, are coming up with these Afrocentric stupid arguments because they feel so disconnected from source, they feel so disconnected from origin, they feel so disconnected from their race roots because of the immense racism and the consequences, the PTSD of American racism, that in order to defend themselves, their own emotional and identity PTSD, they come up with these stupid arguments. Ifa or African traditions are only for Africans. It only works for Africans. It's stupid. Let's just start there. This knowledge, at least when it comes to Ifa, has Arab roots, and before that, the Asian. Therefore, it's not yours. This is why when people from Isese, friends of mine who are Isese, argue to me, Rene, why do you waste so much time on the Isese issue of geomancy? Because of these stupid arguments. Because TikTok is filled with them. Because Facebook is filled with them. YouTube is filled with them. WhatsApp is filled with them. People are stupid. They don't read. It is much easier to get on a TikTok and just go on a stupid rant like this man, Awolaye or Awoloyo, and Muhammad did. I don't know his name. He gets in a car, just turns on a phone. It's much easier to just go click. Let me just talk bullshit. Bullshit. Oh, and by the way, ignorant bullshit. Click and just send it over to TikTok. It's a lot harder to open a goddamn book. And it's a lot harder to open up 27, 30, thick, 300, 400 page, deep scientific academic books because they're hard. It's easy to be stupid. It's hard to read. So my first statement before we get on to the explanation that I have here, a board and everything ready for you. The first thing is, goddamn read. We're tired of teaching you people. I'm sorry that today I'm not my usual, hey, professorial nature, but I'm tired of these stupid arguments. Are we ready? Okay, Mr. Awolaye Muhammad, in case you don't know, you're late to the game. There's people of my skin tone who have been in Ifa practice for over 100 years. They're the first people of European descent or a mixture of European descent initiated in Cuba likely could be put to somebody like Bonifacio Valdejo Behueñe. Bonifacio Valdejo Behueñe, as far as my memory returns to me, people like Bernardo Roa and Bonifacio Valdejo Behueñe were Creoles. They were not Creole or mulatto or whatever mixed term you want to do it. They were mixed. They were not fully African. They definitely had European ancestry in them. When you looked at their skin tone, they were darker skinned than me. But when you see their phenotypical DNA traits, you can tell that they had definite influence from somebody. There was a DNA mixture there with somebody who was a European. There was definitely a European grandfather or a European father. Somebody was a slave master. Somebody was a slave. There was sex involved, and voila, somebody was born. That's called miscegenation. Study it. And Behueñe, Bonifacio Valdejo Behueñe, when you look at it, he looks like a European man with, the little curly, mustache. And Bernardo Rojas was, looked like a very Europeanized, darker mulatto type of mixed man. But he didn't have a very clear Afro-phenotypical traits. It wasn't as strong as, for example, the Afro-phenotypical traits that you would see in Regimio Herrera or Barameria de China or Tata Gaetan Gundafung, or other elders of the time. And they're not the only ones. By the 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s of the last centuries, the 19th, there was people like José Ramón Ávila y Cadí and Benito Rodríguez Ochepaure who were initiated in this tradition, and they were highly influential, highly educated, to the point where they were smarter than their black counterparts. Not because they were innate. I'm not gonna engage in this stupid essentialist biological racialist argument. They just knew more. They read more. They were more cultured. They were more educated. Maybe they had more privilege. Maybe in Cuban society they had access to better schools to their counterparts that lived in poorer neighborhoods, the Afro neighborhoods. Could be a whole bunch of explanation. We could be here for hours talking the sociological or the socio-economic explanations of that. But the bottom line is people like Benito Rodriguez, who worked in the National Library of Cuba, they were highly educated. Because of Benito Rodriguez is because the reason why black, mulatto, Creole, Chinese, Japanese, indigenous from Latin America, mestizo people from Mexico, Panama, Puerto Rico, the United States are able to practice Ifa today. Because all of those knowledge that was practiced among mulatto and black communities prior to them being initiated was not written down, or if they had writings, they had very private handwritten notebooks. Benito was one of the first people to type this information up in typewriters. Jose Ramon Avila was one of the star students of the famous Miguel Febles Padrón of Ica. Jose Ramon Avila was Icadí. Jose was a master of ceremonies, not just a regular common, kill a few chickens and, pass a leaf over your body, sarayeye, and get out of here, balabalao. He was a master of ceremonies. He had one of the first schools. Tenía una escuelita. He had a first school. A lot of babalaos, over 200 babalaos, 200, 300 babalaos of the tradition, claim direct lineage to Jose Ramon Avila, teaching them his particular ritual of the Ebo Riru, of the Ebo upon the Ifa trade of his tradition. A white man, a blonde white man. The first babalao to come out of Cuba with an Igba Odu, with an Olofing icon, was a white man named Carlos Ojeda Osarete. And he was the first one to initiate babalaos in the United States. Before Jemiele Boboin came over afterwards in the 70s and tried to spread the first Igba Odu of the Nigerian traditions of his lineage, they were already there. Pancho Mora was a man that was very clearly European descendant, had a mix probably of maybe a small percentage of African, because you can tell he's not just as white as I was, but he was a white man. Pancho Mora, Irete Kutang, in the 1940s and 1950s was the first babalao in the United States, in the USA. A white man. And he used this, he used Okwele. He did a bow and it worked. Why did it work? I hate this ridiculous argument that they were putting on his comments, or that this man was giving, that, maybe they can be initiated, but it's really not going to work for them. Really? Because they cast this chain and it worked perfectly. Strangers that didn't know, the guy would look through, they go, what, you're suffering this, and this. The persons would cry in front of them. And then they would work upon the Ifa tray and do the rituals, and the miracles would happen. So how do you explain that they could work with the tools of Ifa if it doesn't work for them? Well, I have an explanation. You don't. You have an essentialist, racialist, stupid explanation that doesn't make any sense. I came with some science. We're going to talk about that soon. I'm ready for you. And I'm ready for all essentialist, racialist people. You can call me a culture vulture all you want, but we know what we're talking about. Carlos Ojeda Osarete was the first babalao to come out. He was white. The first two babalaos to spread Ifa in my country of Puerto Rico were two Cuban white men, Diego Fontela Obellono and Roberto Bolufelo Gundaleni. And they were the first three men to come out with an Igba Odu icon out of Cuba. Before that, Igba Odu existed in only 2 or 3 places in the world, or maybe 4. Some places, whatever the Badu icons in Benin, Togo, Ghana, the Igba Odu that they had in Nigerian zones, and Cuba. There was no other place in the world that had any icons that had the information of the 16 Mejis like that. Perhaps maybe the Sagawa or the Millanca people, because they had their own type of 16 Mejis birthing ceremony, which uses the same principle of the pictographic portals. We're going to get to that. But they were white men. It wasn't black men, it was white men. The black Cubans started coming out in the 80s with the Mariel boat lift, when they were allowed to come out. And there was a lot of great babalaos. We're not talking about essentialist arguments. Andres Cola was a black man, great babalao. Miguel Fles was a black man, great babalao. Tata Aitan was a black man, great babalao. Bonifacio was a mulatto. And so forth. Elpidio Caldena was a black man. I mean, I could go on. I mean, for those that are following my Facebook page, I have an album of AI pictures. We've tried to restore a lot of the old pictures. There's over 350 Cuban babalaos there. And a lot of them are white. Some of them are indigenous looking. There's even a Bolivian Babalao, the first Babalao from Bolivia, who was an indigenous looking man who was Japanese heritage. He was half Bolivian and half Japanese. He had Bolivian citizenship and he had Japanese citizenship. Sir, you are behind the times. I don't know any other way to say it. You are extremely behind the times. It has nothing to do with being popular. It has nothing to do with I like your argument, I don't like your argument. It has to do with you are so behind that you're arguing arguments that would have been okay to say in the 1800s because there was a lot of ignorance then, but you're arguing this in the age of 2026 with internet, with documentation, when we've had conferences, books, videos, and discussion about the meaning of energy and ashe. And pretty much every Babalao who studies knows this. It's like arguing that algebra doesn't work. Are you kidding me? Let's get that out of the way. You're behind on that. 3, before I get to my class, because we're going to get to the class, I have a question for Mr. Amoloye or Awoloye Muhammad. You speak with this arrogance of knowledge. And I'm going to respect the fact that you're an elder man. I hate to have to put elder men on the spot because I feel embarrassed for them. And I was taught to respect elders just to try to be, tolerant with them. But what you just said was so stupid. And what all the other people in the comments who agree with you was so stupid that I said, nah, we can't let this shit slide. Sir, you talk a lot about experience. Do you even speak Yoruba? Do you even know 4 verses per Odu? Have you undergone the Idawon Campo of your lineage? You don't know what the Idawon Campo is? I'm not going to tell you. Figure it out. You're the elder. You're the expert. You went on camera and told everybody else who is a light-skinned Babalao or a light-skinned practitioner of any African tradition that they can't be there because they're not black. And we're responding your critique with a very simple question. Have you taken your Idawon Campo? Do you know 4 verses per Odu with each verse with its Ebo, with its Itan, and with the Akoche? What is an Ebo? What's an Akoche? What's an Itan? And if you know what they are, do you know them by memory? No? Then shut up. I don't say the bad word, but you know what I'm talking about. Then shut up. You don't know? Then go study. You don't know? Then take off the ridiculous hat, take off the elekes, take off the African garb, and go to Africa, to the area of your particular lineage, and go study as an Omo with an elder over there. And you come back in 15 years, and then look at me in the eye and go, I learned. I did pass my Idawon Campo. I'm about to recite of your own Obeate. 1, 2, 3, and then the story, the Ebo is this, and then I'm gonna go, bravo, sir. Bravo, you finally learned. Now you can have the propriety and the status to say the arguments that you were saying, and even then, I'm gonna disagree with you, because you're wrong. But I am wagering that by the time you do so, by the time you come back, which will take 15 years, and I don't know if you have 50 more years in your life because you're an elder man, but when you come back, you're gonna be so educated that you're gonna come back with your head down, and your tail between your legs, and you go, I was wrong. I was a stupid man. And you were. We're going to get to the explanation here. Because we have a lot of people. Came prepared, puppy. I always come with the receipts and prepared. I don't waste my time. We're going to talk about the difference between, use my handy little irofa, between biological DNA lineage and spiritual Ache energy lineage. Now, for Mr. Amoloye or Awoloye Muhammad, and for a lot of his Afrocentric, Afro-special, Afro-everything, US-based, insecure African Americans who are trying to find source, find the origin, find root, and, hate all the Caucasoids like me because you're the melanated supermen of the earth. We're going to explain the difference. If your biological DNA lineage, that means that you can trace back biologically, going back with actual roots in history, to some ethnic group in Africa. If you're black skinned and you have African phenotypes, it is extremely likely, pretty much guaranteed, that you're going to find somewhere where if they did a DNA test, you can be from Senegal, you can be from Somalia, you can be from Ethiopia, Kenya, the Democratic Republic of Congo, South Africa, Sudan, Chad, Yemen, no, Yemen's the Arab world, Egypt, you name it, Libya, Ivory Coast, Cape Verde, you name the African country, Gabon, whatever. You're going to find some roots. That's what it means to have biological DNA lineage. Now, some people in your arguments, and I'm including Mr. Awoloye Muhammad and everybody in his comments, are agreeing with him. You confuse biological lineage with spiritual Ache transfer energy lineage. When we talk about biological lineage, or in the Isheshe traditions, when they do a Boriru and they recite the verse from Ogunda Owanren, Ogunda Owani, Ogunda Leni, as we say in Cuba, which talks about that the Isheshe of one is your tradition, your ancestors. The Isheshe of any, I don't know if it's Isheshe, any is Iya, I can't remember the verse because it's not my tradition. Baba ni Isheshe any. I think it's Iya ni Isheshe any. Another way of saying, my Isheshe is my father, or my tradition. Isheshe means ancestry or tradition. My tradition is my father. My tradition is my mother. My tradition is her father and her grandmother and her mother, my grandparents. My tradition is my great-grandparents, and so forth. That's biological DNA lineage. That only applies to the particular worship of what in the Nigerian traditions, the Isheshe traditions, is called Egbe, or the fraternity of heaven, okay? Or the tribe, the fraternal tribe that you belong to in heaven. In Cuba, we call that el cordón espiritual or el cuadro espiritual, with the spirits that most closely align to us because they belong to the same spiritual group, or soul groups. The mediums in the USA like to call that the soul groups. The Nigerians like to call it the fraternity of heaven, or the brothers, okay? Or the fraternal tribe there, Egbe. And in Cuba, that tradition is highly worshipped with European methodology. Allan Kardec, white table, or Mesa Blanca, spiritism. But it's basically that. It doesn't matter what prayers or what items they use, they're invoking the spiritual tribe. And funny enough, if you look at Egbe, if you look at the awe, the ceramic jar of Egbe, what's in the ceramic jar? Water. And what do they put in front of Egbe? Oil lamps, a flame. And what do the people in the Spiritist tradition do when they're going to do a misa, when they're going to do a seance? They put a bowl of water. And what do they light next to the bowl of water? A candle. It does not matter the recipient, whether it be a rustic ceramic recipient or whether it be a glass one. It's the same idea. The idea is that if you fill it with water is a conduit, number one. And number two, through the water you can see the reflection. And the reflection is a reflection of your double, your Enikeji Orun, your double, which pertains to the Egbe tribe. So you can connect to your Egbe tribe either through a mirror or through water or through photographs. That's why in Cuba, they would tell the Yawos, you can't look in the mirror, you can't take photos, because you were vulnerable to the Enikeji Orun. The spiritual tribe wants you to return to them. They are sad. When we're here in heaven and I'm hanging around with my wife and my kids, they're happy to have me here. My spiritual tribe right now is sad. They want to find a way for me to finish this existence, which is a worse existence, and come back to them. That's why we always tell in our Lukumi tradition, and I'm sure it's like that in many of the African traditions, don't look into certain reflections. I'm sure if I look hard enough, there's got to be an Ifai Sese verse that talks about not looking in mirrors or not looking in waters or doing anything because it affects your Enikeji Orun and your relationship to them. That's called biological DNA lineage. Now, this is important. I talked about this in another video, why it was important that we stick to our own traditions. Because when you initiate, your Egbe is going to relate with who you are. And if your grandmother used to talk to you in Spanish, she's going to relate to you in Spanish or in English. I mean, in the spiritual world, they know all the languages. But that's the life that they just left. So they're more closely aligned to it. The Ori will always change. That's another argument. Even if I'm light-skinned now, there's nothing to determine that my Ori didn't live in Africa before. So do I lose the African properties when I die? Or does the Ori become eternal? And if the Ori is eternal, then that means everybody, including the black man that was doing that video, Awoloye, Muhammad, etc., could have been a Chinese person in a past lifetime. Could have been a white man, for all he knows. It could have been Napoleon himself, a Frenchman. How does he know? So he's going to discriminate against his own Ori? When we keep examining these stupid essentialist, racialist arguments, we see how stupid they are. That's the biological DNA lineage. Well, now, people confuse this. Afrocentric people confuse this and say, if I have a direct conduit DNA lineage to African people, I must be better suited for African religious traditions. Or the Orishas will speak to me better. Or the Egungun will speak to me better. Or they'll communicate because I am directly related to the tribe where this came from. Except it didn't come from you guys. We already talked about how the Arabs brought divination to you guys. It's perhaps, not perhaps, it is highly likely, already pretty much proven, that the Orisha tradition, the icons, the rituals, the language, the particular objects used, etc., what's called the interpretative catalog of the culture, of the local geomancy, as anthropologist J.Y.D. Peel labeled it. The local African geomancies were influenced by the realm Arab geomancy. So there is aspects of the African tradition of Ifa and Orisha that are native, or let's just say indigenous, to the zones of Nigeria, where you only see the practice of the Orishas there. I would go further. I would argue that the voodoo of the Benin people, the Fonenwe people, and any of the other traditions have different names for the same spiritual energies. There can't be voodoo and Orishas and Loas and all these other different entities and they all are different. No, they're the same energy, nature entities. Every culture has a name for them. The one thing that is constant is the divination binary sign, or what I like to call, and you see it in the bottom, the pictographic portals. We're going to get to that. But if you're one of these black essentialists, you're going to be arguing that you have a better connection to Africa because you have a direct connection to a biological DNA lineage to Africa. And that has nothing to do with Ashe. It has to do with your Egbe. You do have to likely propitiate your Egbe. And if you go to a divination and they tell you that the best way to relate to your Egbe is to do it through an Afro-Isese tradition, then go get yourself an Isheshe Egbe icon and propitiate it and attend to it by the methodology of that lineage, and you're going to do well. But those that are born in Afro-Caribbean traditions or in Puerto Rico or in the USA, it's part of our Oris destiny that we were going to be closer to a different type of lineage. So our own Egun are going to lead us to a tradition that better suits our particular reality as Spanish speakers or as Occidental people. And they don't have a problem receiving prayers in Spanish. They don't have a problem receiving them in English. Even Popola says that to his own students. Ask him. Go ahead and go talk to Solakba de Popola and see if I'm lying. Ask any of the Solakba de Popola people if I'm lying. Because I know they do their rituals in Spanish. And I've seen them do their Eboriru in English. And I've seen lineages in South America with permission completely from their African teachers in Africa tell them do the Eboriru in Spanish. So what are you going to tell me about this essentialist, linguistic, racialist, ridiculous, that it has to be black and it has to be in Yoruba? Really? Then what language do the Fon speak? What language do the Ewe speak? What language do the Edo speak? What language do the Igala speak? What language do the Igbo speak? And they all work with the 16 Meiji signs. Some of them work with 240 additional Omoluos. And all of them don't have verses. The only ones who do verses are the Nigerian Yoruba. There goes that argument. Whoopsie. Don't confuse biological DNA lineage with Ashe energy. Let's get to the second issue. Spiritual Ashe energy lineage. This is important. It doesn't matter that I am a white-skinned or a European descendant Puerto Rican with clear roots to Portugal and to Spain for my roots. That's where my heritage in particular comes from. High Portuguese, high Spaniard, probably Canary Island heritage. I don't know if far back the Muslims, the Moors in some way have some blood in my DNA. It's possible because in my DNA breakdown there's sub-Saharan Africa and North Africa, upper Saharan African blood. There's Arab and Sephardic, DNA there. There's a mix of Jews, there's a mix of Muslim Moors, there's a mix of everything. Because I'm from the New World. Miscegenation was the reality. But that has nothing to do with this, with spiritual transfer energy. I could be the whitest guy from Alaska or Swedish whitest guy. And my Babalao, whichever it is, it could be a Chinese Babalao, it could be the Bolivian Japanese guy I was talking about, it could be an indigenous Mexican mestizo Babalao, it could be Yemi Oloboboin himself, Solakba de Popola, Wanda Bimbola, it could be anybody. It does not matter. Why? Because they don't own Ashe. Ashe is primordial energy, God energy. Energy of the sun. What is the sun? The sun is a manifestation of Olodumare. For us it is, at least in the Afro-Cuban tradition. And I think it is the same. Olorum. Olo, owner, Orum, of the dimension of heaven, or the dimension of the ancestors, whichever way you want to translate that. The owner of the dimension of the other world. God. Okay? God all-powerful. He's the owner of Ashe. He allows us, mere mortals, let's just get ourselves out of the clouds. Let's get our heads out of the clouds and become a little bit more humble. He allows us mere mortals to have a part a small, minuscule, because we cannot understand the magnificent and the omnipotent power of God. We just can't conceive of it. We're mere mortals in a very limited terrestrial dimension. He allows us a portion of Ashe through our rituals. When we do any ritual in any of the African traditions, the thing that determines our capacity to work, this is speaking directly to Mr. Awoloye Muhammad, and for all those that commented, though, that we Caucasoids or Caucasians don't have the ability to really work our rituals because we're not just as good as the melanated. No, let me school you, melanated folks. In all the African traditions, we have some kind of a pictographic tradition. In the Congo, Voodoo, and Igbo people, they have what's called firmas or agitenas. They're drawings, pictographic drawings that can look like this: arrows, plus and zero, which is basically positive and negative energy. And based on the message, these are pictographic message and portals. When the icons or the technological, the spiritual technology of these traditions from the Congo people, the Voodoo people, or the Igbo people, who all of them who have these type of firmas, and they use powder, gunpowder, to spark and to energize these pictographic message portals. They use this in their icons to essentially hearken the energy of the Mupungos or the deities of nature on top of the energy of the ancestor world. They call them Mfumbe in the Congo tradition. The Yorubas call it Engungun. The Voodoo call it Joto, whatever term you want to use. But basically, in order to be able to house them or to in some way connect this earthly plane, earthly dimension object to be like a phone to the energetic world, to Orum, they need these energetic message portals, these pictographic message portals. In the Congo, Voodoo, and Igbo tradition, they use things like this called agitenas. In the Yoruba tradition of the Olorishas, they have these circular colored markings. In the Afro-Cuban tradition, there's 4 colors. I believe it is yellow, blue, white, and red. In the Nigerian tradition, it's white and red, Efung and Osum, which comes from that particular tree. The Osum, Cuba, they call it Osum Naboru, and the camwood. The camwood. In English, they call it camwood. Osum and Efung, which is basically a chalky substance that is made in Nigeria. In Cuba, they do it from other objects, but it doesn't really matter. The point is it's a type of a chalk. These are the 2 primordial essences, so primordial that they're important to a particular, very important deity of the Babalaos, which I will not speak about. But how do they create the portals? These are the portals. These are the Orisha portals. This portal was created with a particular combination of these circles. Maybe for an Orisha, it might be red, red, white, white. Another Orisha might be white, 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 red. Another might be white, red, 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 white. Another one might be red, red, white, white, red, white. Whatever combinations, or in the Afro-Cuban tradition, they put the first four main colors, and then outside of those 4 main colors, then whatever combination that's specialized to that particular Orisha. This is how the energy from the Orisha world, where the Orishas reside, the plane of existence in Orung, where they're elevated to the dimension they live in, how we can bring their energy down to help either consecrate a person or an icon of Orisha. We need these pictographic Orisha portals. This is the transmission of Ache energy. And the people who transmit it to you, a priest that has received it, that's what an initiation is. It's a connection. It's a transmission of the divine Ache energy. Once a person has been activated, has had divine Ache energy transmitted to them, they can use these pictographic portals to create an icon, a spiritual technology, which basically they alter the shrine for any kind of icon. You know, the Afro-Cubans do this all the time with the Babalaos. All the time, all of our icons in some way have a pictographic mix of this, or the majority of them. We'll get to that. You need this to consecrate an Orisha priest. And people, you can go online right now in the Nigerian tradition, you will see people shave their heads, and you'll see on video getting certain circular paintings put on their head, and a particular medicine, a particular akoche, but in this case is a Orisha medicine, that is placed on their head so that they're prepared to receive the Ashe transmission in the form of omiero, the washing that the person has to receive, with sacred chanted, the chlorophyll energy from the plants that have been specially chanted and specially transmitted Ache through the singing of Olorishas or Babalao. And once that omiero is done and the person's been washed, there's blood sacrifice, which is the hemoglobin energy of the animal world. We have the transmission of the plant world, the transmission of the animal world, and the transmission of the mineral world is the stone, the okuta or the ota of the particular orisha. And what is the conduit? The orisha portal, the energy portal, which transfits spiritual ache energy lineage. What is my spiritual lineage? The lineage of my orisha, godmother. She had somebody transmitted to her. The person who transmitted to her had it transmitted to her, and so forth, all the way going back to, who knows, hundreds of generations back, to the first person who ever began these rituals or was irradiated with the knowledge of God and told, this is what you need to do to transmit this energy. And from there on, the tradition has been created. But you need this. You don't need to be black or white or Chinese or Japanese to learn how to use these pictograph signs. And the babalaos, we work with Oduifa, which I'm trying, I don't know if I can see it here, but yeah, you can see my very crude drawing of Oduifa. Every ritual where a babalao has to work, whether it be a particular bow on the tray, whether it be the creation of an icon, whether it be a particular spell, a particular, what you guys call a kun lebo, a particular style of feeding that has to do in that tradition, a particular desired object requires chanting, prayer, because that's the direct linkage of our ache, which has been already transmitted to us. It is the way to touch the other world. It is the other way, is the way to claim those energies to come down. I talked about the verse from Otrupo Meji, Adifafun Oyepolu, that's talked about the importance of claiming the energy of your ancestor lineage, your biological DNA lineage, but also the spiritual ache energy, because when I do my iyuba, the Nigerians call it the iyuba, but it's the moyuba for us, for the Afro-Cubans, I'm bringing down the energy specifically of all the babalaos who were the link, were the chain, energetically wise, the lineage, the spiritual ache energy that allows me to function. It has nothing to do with my Euro-descendant race. It has to do with the fact that when I did Ifa, something like this was done to me. There was something like this. And the Cubans and the Nigerians know about this. Those are secrets. But there was a moment of Odu transmission where the 16 Megis were done and whatever else secrets were done. There was a particular ritual that happened that transmitted that energy. And from that moment on, I have the capacity to use Okwele with prayers and to ask for the energy of the spiritualities of Orunmila of Ifa to come down and use this earth plane object to reflect the energy in heaven, to tell me what is the person living through. And when I solicit that energy, those spiritual entities move the earth plane object, the Okwele or the Inking or whatever, in such a manner that it reflects what the person is living in the heavenly plane. That is the magic of Ifa, scientifically explained. But how do I receive that? It has nothing to do with being a Caucasoid or a melanated person. It has to do with the spiritual ache energy lineage, which is transmitted by pictographic message portals. This is the pictographic message portals of Congo, Voodoo, and Igbo. This is a pictographic message portal for the Olorishas. And this is the pictographic message portal for Ifa. Sir, Mr. Awoloye Muhammad, did you know this? Because if you knew this, you wouldn't have made that stupid argument that white people or Chinese people or indigenous people from the Americas or whatever people, Arab people, cannot practice Ifa because only African people have the particular ache, like a specialized type of special standing or a special, I don't know, a special energy that nobody else can transmit that works for them. Really? That's biological DNA lineage. That has nothing to do with ache energy. Right now, coursing through my veins is the spiritual ache energy transmitted through a particular pictographic message portal and ritual, the Itefa, the Atefa ceremony, which transmits the energy of not one, thousands of babalaos who came before me. I hope the vast majority of them were African people. And who knows that before that first African who received the realm divination geomancy, Arabs and Asians, I also carry their energy, because the energy of the first Muslim merchants that taught the 16 Meji to the Africans in Nigeria, Africans in Dahomey, they were Arabs and they had the energy already transmitted to them. Study up the Miyanka people. Study the way that they initiate and how they do the energy, the energy activation on the sand. Before the Africans did things on tableros, Even more rustic, the Arabs were doing it on the sand. And we still do it on the earth and sand in Africa, and we do it in Cuba too, in the sand. If you didn't know that. Well, I've seen Afro practitioners doing the life divination of people straight on the ground. So the thing was rustic. And that energy was taught to those Africans post the 16th century. So we already have evidence in anthropological books and even physical evidence. There's a machine in the European British Museum that is dated 1325 or 1350, I think, after Christ. That's 200 to 300 years before the Nigerians even knew about the 16 Meji. And there was a machine with the 16 Mejis in the British Museum. We have physical evidence that other groups had the Mejis before the Africans. What are you talking about this being African only? What are these people talking about? Oh, it's African only because it started in Africa. No, it didn't. The Mejis came from the Arab world and probably before them the Asian world. Nobody claims it's there. Who knows who started it? Nobody really knows if it was an Indian tradition, if it was an Asian tradition from the I Ching that was later taught to Persians and then went to the Muslim world, and then it goes on to the rest of the world, from the Muslim world to Europe and to Africa, and from Africa ultimately through the slave trade to the Americas in the form of Lukumi Ifa and all the traditions that we received. But it does not matter what my skin is. Spiritual energy transfer and lineage. I was transmitted by Eduardo Gonzalez. The man before him was Nidio Baez. The man before him was Angelito Poi. The man before him was El Moro Bango, Baba Yobe. The man before him was El Pidio Caldeón Turazá. The man before him was Arturo Peña Trupón Baraife. The man before him was Secundino Cruz Salafubello. The man before him was Marcos Garcia Yobe. The man before him was Remigio Herrera Obarameyi, an African man that was brought us in a slave. Beyond that, we don't know. But we have spiritual transmission energy. Because every man I just mentioned, at some point, when they did their own Itefa or Atefa, went through this ritual of what? Pictographic message portal transmission of the spiritual Ache energy. Once it was transmitted to them, they could transmit it to anybody of any race. It has nothing to do, or eliminate this. It's all spiritual Ache energy lineage. Biological DNA lineage only speaks about your phenotypical traits, how you look physically and your skin tone, the melanated value that you guys put so much premium on. And what Egbe traditions do you have to worship? And who knows, maybe you guys go to your Egbe and you're going to find a whole bunch of white guys, Chinese guys, native, and be like, you part of my Egbe? I thought it was all a bunch of Africans. Surprise! Oris don't have races in heaven. That's an earth plane concept. Glad I was able to give this class. Read, study, educate yourselves. Don't be stupid.